The dust lay thick on Main Street, the kind that never settled no matter how long the wind slept. It floated in the air like a memory the town refused to forget, clinging to boot leather, to cuffs, to the hems of dresses hung carefully above the dirt. Noon had passed only moments before, the bell above the courthouse still swaying slightly as its last iron note faded into the dry heat. That sound followed Eli Rourke as he rode in, slow and deliberate, his horse's hooves tapping the hard-packed earth with a rhythm everyone recognized but hadn't heard in years. Conversations died as if cut with a blade. Men on the porch of Miller's saloon turned their heads first. Cards stopped mid-deal. A glass paused halfway to a mouth. Someone muttered his name, not loudly, but loud enough. Women standing outside the dry goods store stiffened, fingers tightening around parcels of flour and cloth. Even the dogs seemed to sense the shift, tails lowering as they slunk aside. Eli Rourke had come back. He sat straight in the saddle, shoulders squared, hat pulled low but not hiding his face. Time had marked him, same as the land. Lines ran deeper at the corners of his eyes, his jaw was harder, beard shadow darker. He looked like a man who'd learned how to endure silence and hunger and not complain about either. His coat was worn but clean, his boots scarred, his rifle strapped across his back not as a threat but a fact. He reined in front of Grady's General Store, the heart of the town whether folks liked it or not. If something was going to happen, it would happen there. Eli swung down, boots hitting dirt with a soft thud that somehow sounded louder than gunfire in the quiet that followed. He looped the reins around the post, checked the knot twice, and laid a calming hand on his horse's neck. The animal snorted, sensing the tension, but stayed. Inside the store, the air smelled of coffee beans, cured leather, and sweat. Shelves creaked faintly as if the building itself were uneasy. Eli stepped through the door, and the bell above it rang once, sharp and accusing. Sheriff Calder was already there, leaning against a barrel of flour like he owned it. He wore his badge polished bright, his hat tilted back just enough to show confidence, or the performance of it. Beside him stood the town councilman, men with soft hands and hard eyes, and between them, Silas Boone. Boone didn't look like he belonged to dust and sweat. His coat was fine wool, dark and pressed. His boots had never known mud. He rested both hands atop a silver-tipped cane, the metal catching the light every time he shifted his weight. Boone smiled when he saw Eli, the kind of smile that assumed the ending had already been written. "Well," Boone said, voice smooth as poured oil, "if it isn't Eli Rourke. I was beginning to think the desert finally swallowed you." Eli didn't answer right away. He took in the room, the faces, the way some people wouldn't meet his eyes while others stared openly, daring him to speak. He walked to the counter, slow, unhurried, and rested one hand on the worn wood. "Didn't come for talk," he said at last. His voice was steady, roughened by years of wind and solitude. "Came for business." A ripple of murmurs spread. Sheriff Calder straightened a little. "You always did have a talent for trouble, Eli." Boone chuckled softly. "Let's be polite, Sheriff. He's a guest. Though I suppose that depends on why he's here." Boone leaned forward just enough. "You come to apologize, Eli. Or to sell what's left of your land now that the fees have finished you off." That hit where Boone intended it to. Eli's land sat north of town, hard ground made harder by drought and rules written by men who never set foot on it. Everyone knew the ranch was barely holding on. Eli reached into his coat. Several hands twitched toward holsters. Instead of a weapon, he placed something small and rusted on the counter. Iron, old, heavy despite its size. A key. The murmurs stopped entirely. Boone's smile faltered, just for a moment, but that moment was enough. His eyes narrowed. "Where did you get that?" Eli didn't look at him. "Belonged to my father." The sheriff frowned. "That's the gate key. The north dam," Boone said sharply, his voice losing its smooth edge. "That key was lost years ago." Eli's fingers stayed near it, not touching, just claiming its presence. "Wasn't lost. Buried. Same as the truth." A few townsfolk shifted uncomfortably. Someone near the door swallowed hard. "You have no authority," Boone snapped. "That dam is under town control. Under my mills. Under lawful agreement." "Lawful," Eli repeated quietly. "Funny word. My father used to say water don't care about papers." Sheriff Calder pushed off the barrel. "You need to put that away, Eli. Whatever you think you're planning, you'll only make it worse. Eli finally looked up, meeting the sheriff's eyes. Worse than watching cattle die standing up. Worse than fields cracking open while your mills run night and day. Worse than men packing up and leaving because they can't pay for water that used to fall from the sky. Boone's cane tapped the floor once, sharp. You're talking nonsense. The dam saved this town. It saved your profits, Eli said. And it killed everything else. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. Boone's jaw clenched. You touch that dam, Eli, and you'll answer to this town. To the law, to me. Eli picked up the key then, curling his fingers around it. It looked even older in his hand, like a piece of the past that refused to stay buried. If you want to stop me, he said, voice low but carrying, just do it. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The sheriff's hand hovered near his gun, then fell away. The councilmen exchanged looks, calculations flickering behind their eyes. Boone stared at Eli, searching for doubt, for hesitation, for anything he could exploit. He found none. Eli turned and walked toward the door. The bell rang again, louder this time, like an alarm finally heard too late. Outside, the sun hung heavy and merciless, the land waiting, watching. As Eli swung back into the saddle and rode toward the north road, the town slowly exhaled. Whispers broke out, urgent and fearful. Some faces burned with anger, others with something closer to hope, though no one dared name it. Behind him, Silas Boone's cane struck the floor again, harder now, and his voice cut through the noise. He won't get far, Boone said. But as Eli rode on, dust rising behind him like a challenge, more than a few people wondered if that was true, or if the town itself was about to be forced to follow where he led. By sundown the sky had turned the color of old copper, the sun sinking low behind the hills as if it too were tired of watching the valley suffer. Shadows stretched long across the cracked earth, filling the dry riverbed with darkness where water once ran. Eli Rourke stood at the edge of the north dam, alone for the moment, listening to the deep, restless groan of water pressed hard against wooden planks that had not been tested in years. The dam rose before him like a scar, thick timbers bolted together, stained dark by time and dampness. Moss clung to the lower boards, green and stubborn, a reminder that water still lived here even if the rest of the land had forgotten it. Behind the gate, the reservoir heaved and swelled, trapped, impatient. It spoke in a low, constant roar, like a beast breathing in its sleep. Eli dismounted slowly, his joints aching from the long ride. He tied his horse to a dead juniper and rested his forehead briefly against the animal's neck. Won't be long, he murmured. The horse flicked an ear, uneasy. He crossed to the iron wheel set into the gate mechanism and ran his hand over it. The metal was cold, rough beneath his palm. His father's voice rose unbidden in his memory, low and tired, spoken years ago under a sky full of stars. If a thing's built to hold, it's built to be open too. Just depends who's brave enough. Footsteps crunched on gravel behind him. Eli turned. Torches dotted the ridge like fireflies at first, then multiplied, their flames wavering in the growing dark. Horses snorted. Voices rose and fell, sharp with anger, edged with fear. The town was coming, just as he knew they would. Sheriff Calder rode at the front, his silhouette rigid in the saddle. Behind him came Silas Boone in a fine carriage that bumped and rocked over the uneven ground, his cane visible even from a distance. Ranchers, mill workers, shopkeepers, men with rifles and men with nothing but clenched fists followed in a swelling mass. Some had come to stop him. Others had come simply to see. Eli stayed where he was. The sheriff dismounted first, boots striking stone hard. Eli, he called, trying for calm, step away from the gate. Eli didn't move. You should have listened back in town. Boone's carriage halted. He climbed out stiffly, face flushed, eyes bright with fury. You think this makes you some kind of hero? He shouted. You'll ruin us. The crowd pressed closer, torches throwing wild shadows across faces twisted by heat and emotion. Someone yelled, hang him. Another voice shouted back, let him speak. Sheriff Calder raised a hand. Quiet. The water surged behind the dam, as if responding to the tension, slamming against the gate with a sudden force that made the timbers creak. Several people flinched. You open that, the sheriff said more softly now, and there's no taking it back. Low fields'll flood. Roads'll wash out. People'll lose what little they've got left. Eli turned fully to face them. Firelight gleamed off his eyes, steady and unafraid. People already lost everything, he said. They just lost it slow enough you could pretend it wasn't happening. Boone pushed forward, cane stabbing the ground. My mills employ half this town. And drink the river dry to do it, Eli shot back. You ration water to ranchers while your wheels turn all night. You call that order. I call it theft. Boone's face darkened. That dam stands because I paid for it. Because I made this place prosper. A bitter laugh rippled through the crowd. Not everyone joined it, but it was there, sharp and undeniable. Eli reached into his coat and pulled out the rusted key. The firelight caught it, and a murmur rolled through the people. My father helped build this dam, Eli said. Died believing it'd save the valley. He was wrong. Or maybe he was lied to. Either way, I won't die the same way. He turned back to the gate. Eli, the sheriff barked. If you want to stop me, Eli said without looking back, echoing his words from earlier, just do it. No one moved. The key slid into the lock with a groan of metal protesting metal. Eli braced his foot against the stone base and twisted. At first nothing happened. Then there was a sharp crack, like a bone snapping, and the wheel lurched. Water exploded through the seams. A white torrent burst from beneath the gate, slamming into the dry riverbed with a force that shook the ground. The sound was deafening, a roaring wall of life unleashed all at once. Spray soaked Eli to the knees in seconds, cold and violent, stealing his breath. The crowd screamed. Some stumbled back, tripping over rocks and each other. Horses reared, eyes rolling, as riders fought to calm them. Torches dipped and flared, one falling and hissing out in the sudden wet. The river surged forward, racing down its old course as if it remembered every bend, every stone. Dust lifted in great choking clouds before being swallowed whole by rushing water. The land drank greedily, cracks filling, thirst breaking in an instant. Boone stood frozen, his mouth open, his cane slipping from his fingers and clattering uselessly onto the stone. You've doomed us, he whispered, then shouted, voice cracking, you've ruined everything. Eli turned, soaked and shaking but upright. Water roared at his back like applause from the earth itself. No, he said, raising his voice to be heard. I've given it back. Sheriff Calder stared at the river, then at the people scrambling to higher ground. His jaw worked as if chewing on something bitter. Slowly, he removed his hat. Rifles that had been raised now sagged. Hands loosened. The fury that had driven the crowd here faltered, replaced by awe and fear and something like relief. Tomorrow, Eli continued, the low fields will flood. Yes, then they'll drain. And after that, crops will grow again. Wells will fill. Cattle will drink. Or you can take me now. Hang me, shoot me, do whatever makes you feel like this is still your town, and go back to fighting over dust. Silence fell heavy despite the thunder of water. A woman near the back of the crowd began to cry, not loud, just quietly, staring at the river as it rushed past her boots. A rancher dropped to his knees, pressing his hands into wet earth like he couldn't believe it was real. Boone found his voice again, thin and shrill. Sheriff, arrest him. Calder didn't move. He looked at Boone, then at the people he'd grown up with, people whose faces were lit now not just by torchlight but by reflection off flowing water. Go home, the sheriff said finally. All of you. Boone stared at him in disbelief. You can't be serious. Calder met his gaze. I am. One by one, the crowd began to break apart. Some left in silence. Some argued. A few stayed behind, watching the river like it might vanish if they looked away too long. Eli waded back through the shallows, retrieved his horse, and mounted with effort. He looked once more at the dam, at the gate now shuddering under the strain, then at the town beyond. He did not wait for thanks. As he rode away along the river's edge, the sound of water followed him, loud and unstoppable, carving a new future through old ground. Behind him, the town stood changed, angry and grateful and afraid all at once, knowing that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again.